You are listening to the Hello Sport Podcast.
What is up, punters and dribblers? Welcome back to another episode of All Talk with the Hello Sport Podcast. And we are joined this week by an elite athlete of Australian and international sport. This man was a rugby league player for the Tigers, for the Broncos, for the Bunnies, winning a competition in 2014, the famous grand final. Sam Burgess's face all broken. Not Sam Burgess, but you know the grand final I'm talking about. He also then went over to chase the dream of Rugby Union in England, representing the English, funnily enough.
Funnily enough, Tom, he also happens to be a fucking bit of a charismatic cat.
Yeah.
He's got a way with words. He's got an ability to make stories pretty fucking funny. He is an engaging gentleman, a physical specimen.
Oh, he's a physical specimen. He's also a budding rugby league coach. He coaches the Dolphins Q Cup side. He's also an assistant to the big dog, Waynos.
He's also a great bloke.
And a great bloke. Flew down here on his own dime. Didn't need to. We could have Zoomed it, but he flew down here just to do the podcast, which was a huge lift from this man. And that man is Ben Te'o. Do you enjoy it, though? It's good. I actually really like the show.
Yeah, I love it. I didn't want to do it, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm coaching at the moment, so that's my passion.
Yeah.
And then Gerd sort of hit me up about doing it. I said, oh, that's not really for me, to be honest. And he said, oh, no, I think you've got a good opinion and we work well together, so let's give it a crack. So started doing it. And then for some reason, you just get interested in it.
Yeah.
Probably try and give people a different perspective.
I find it to be, and I'm not just trying to blow smoke, but like I find it to be like you and him, specifically you though as well on there, even on the Triple M show, to be like calm rugby league opinion. Like rugby league opinion is so like, what the fuck's going on here? Or like this person's doing this, or like it's all very like up here. And I feel like you bring a real like nice, calm, measured, thoughtful, considered like perspective to shit like even that with the Bulldogs one the other day.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah. Well, I think Gerds is pretty measured, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely. Gerds is measured.
Calm and measured. And then I think if you're not chasing headlines, then you can give a better answer sometimes. I think people forget that some of the guys on those shows, straight away they find out, okay, how did that go? How many hits do you get? How many views? What's the reach? So people who are off contract, you can sometimes tell because they're going balls out. They're throwing anyone under the bus because they just want to, I need to make this statement big and this needs to go viral so I can get a new contract. And I couldn't live like that. So
it's tough. Yeah. We like to believe that that's what Gerds was doing when he said that Manly were flat track.
Oh, my God.
We're huge Seagulls fans here and we've never forgiven him.
We've never ran him out of town.
Yeah. We haven't got over it, to be honest. We haven't got over it.
We made him leave. We turned the beaches against him, and then
but he deserved it.
No, he did.
In all due respect to Gerds, it was a low blow at a high time for the club.
He was pretty brave to come out with that statement, being that he lived in the area and he had multiple businesses in the area.
All his cafes were in the area.
All his cafes, could have been smashed and burned down. Yeah, and but in the end. Was he right?
No, he kind of was.
Yeah, that's the worst part.
Yeah, the worst.
Watching South Sydney, I was at that game watching South Sydney dismantle them.
It was a bloodbath.
It was pretty bad.
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough. We were on that sort of sugar high of Tommy Turbo just fucking everyone up, and it was like when things got tough.
That's what it was. It was a 2-litre bottle of Coke, and we were having a great time, and sugar overload. But it was a serious crash. And to be honest, we haven't quite recovered.
Yeah, I know.
Similar to, so did you want to get into the media though? Like podcasting, same sort of shit, sort of. Like what was how did you see it differently to doing Triple M, say, to doing the medicine?
Yeah, I think I was doing the medicine before I was doing the Triple M show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I was doing the commentary. So that's what I enjoy. I enjoy doing the commentary and trying to paint the picture for the truck drivers out there or the people leaving work who can't get to the game so they can get an idea of what's happening.
Yeah.
So I give my opinion in that, and then that sort of led on to doing the shows and doing some podcasting. And I just think I've been around so many places. I think it's probably a good thing to just share my experiences and how I see the game. Yeah.
There was a moment a couple of weeks ago when you went at, and I think Gerds as well, but you went at Riccio all around the players, the player bargaining and all that sort of shit, and you sort of like, you went back at him because there was seemingly like this real collection of journos who were just like anti-player, like don't fucking step out of line here. And you brought up how seemingly unfair it was the way they were going at Clint Newton.
Yeah.
But you just sort of went back at him. Well, you went back at him specifically on the show. I don't think he, and there's no diss on him, but in that moment, I don't think he really answered any of the questions like that you were sort of putting to him. But do you feel uncomfortable having a like, do you know what I mean? Like that combative sort of thing where you're on air and you're like, fuck it, I'm going to go at him, or are you just like...
Well, it is very awkward because obviously we're on air and and it just goes and it pops off and then they go to an ad break or they go to a song and we're just there, you know, and it's silent. It's like, you know, the producer might say something like, we all good, boys? And we say, yeah, we're all good, and then we move on. But, you know, in that space, I felt, because the players weren't talking, you know, that's something that they had decided not to do. And I think the players and the RLPA were very smart into make a stand without hurting the fans. So the games were still fantastic. We just couldn't hear from them. The product was good, but there was no one there to sort of back up Clint. And I felt like the media, when you're inside the environment, you understand how it works, right? And I reckon there was a directive from some people in the NRL to these people in the media, go and smash these guys. Put the pressure on him, hammer him until they break and we can get our way. And I think he was sort of standing there alone, you know, hands up. He was doing his best and he was fighting, but because the players couldn't talk, no one could come out and support him. And I looked around in the media space and everyone was sort of just, you know, a step back. And I thought it had got to the point where they had overstepped the mark, especially some of the stuff I saw on 360 just looked to me like it was a bit of schoolyard bullying and
attacking the man,
attacking the man, And I thought, well, I'm going to get up here and I'm going to back him. And I hadn't even spoke to Clint then, but he did write me a message after it was all over, sort of thanking me for the support because. Yeah, I just thought he was there. He needed someone to sort of stand with him, and I thought Gerds did a good job too because he can support a lot of those facts from a business point of view. That's what he's into. So, oh look, it was a crazy time, and now it's over, right? And now we're all friends again. You know, we're all friends. But at that time, I mean, man, he was under a lot of pressure, just purely from some people in the media.
Did that surprise you that not as many ex-players that are in the media now spoke out? Or are they just like, is there such a strong directive inside these media companies to be like, you don't say a word?
I could say there is, and they'll say, no, there's not. I'm my own man. I'll do what I want. But that's not true, I don't think. And I think there's a lot of ex-players that are employed by these companies that everyone was on board. This is our... this is the way we're going to look at it and this is the way we're going to attack it. And they sort of step back and look, sometimes you can't blame them, mate. Like that's their job.
Everyone's got their
job and they got their things. They got to toe the line sometimes. And I think guys, well, I know this for a fact, there was guys that were on the media who were just ex-players who were quiet, but behind the scenes, they were supporting Clint.
Right.
You know? You're going, well, man, stand your ground. We got your back and all this. But I got your back, just not publicly.
I'm sort of like, I don't know. I like
if
go well.
Asks, I don't ask me publicly. I mean, I may say something different, so you know I'm lying.
But yeah, and that's the one thing I would say about Triple M was outstanding is there was never any type of, oh, guys, this is the way we want to go at this. It was just up to us, and that's what I thought, so I went with it.
Yeah, it was cool. It was good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of your career that's interesting that I want to talk about as well, but like you're in the coaching game now.
Yeah.
36 years old?
Yeah, 36, yeah.
Looking good. Looking better than us.
Looking well.
Not that that's a fucking...
We're not setting a high bar, Tom, and I don't think that it's not about us.
No, it's not. But so like how long have you been, so you're at the Dolphins, how long have you been doing that for? How did that come about post-career? Was that always something you wanted to do?
Yeah, no, it wasn't. I never, ever wanted to be a coach. I thought they were all strange cats. I thought they were all ex-teachers, weirdos, all those things. And but I think when I travelled and played rugby, I sort of sat back and realised that I'd been under some of the best coaches in both codes, from Tim Sheens, your Mal Meningas, Michael Maguires, and then Warren Gatlin and Eddie Jones in Rugby Union. And I sort of come back, and then I was at the Broncos during those tough times, and I ended up retiring. And I wanted to stay around and do a little bit of work. And I'd started to do some with some of the young kids. Some of the young players that are coming through now, Xavier Willisons and Brendan Piakuras and Jordan Ricky. But there was no spot there for me. And I ended up getting in touch through a few people with Wayne Bennett. And he invited me to he was staying on the Gold Coast. He was in this apartment. So I drove down the Gold Coast to meet him.
What's that like, getting a call from Wayne, just being like, is that just sort of out of the blue? He's like, hey, mate, what do you
Yeah, he said, if you want to talk to me, you got to come down and see me. So I hopped in the car, went down, and sort of waiting outside his apartment. He rocks up with a bunch of shopping, and he's like, I've just been at the grocery shop, so just come upstairs. So we go in, and he opens up the door, and it's funny, actually. Open up the door and NRL 360's on the TV. He's like, what's this shit? What's this shit? He turns it off, and he's unpacking his groceries, and he's, it's funny, he just sort of said to me, you want to coach? He sort of said, why do you want to coach? And I said, I just think I've got something to offer. I think I've seen a lot. I think I can do things a good way and help young players reach their potential. And then, we just sat there and he talked me through it, what he reckons I learned overseas and what I can do better. And he said, okay, if you want to coach, I'll give you a team. You got to coach your own team. He said, that's the only way you'll know whether you want to coach. Mm-hmm. So he gave me a under-21 side, which I coached last year.
Hectic.
And you got to coach this team, from November, December, January, Feb, like pre-season, 4 days a week, nights. So I'm working during the day. I'm coaching at night. You're driving home at like 8:30 at night. So you'll know whether you love it or not when you do that. And that's what he wanted to see. So he said, coach this under-21 side and come see me in a year and tell me if you still love it.
Yep.
And then he would check up on me like every now and again. We'd be doing training sessions and he'd just turn up. Like
really?
Just turn up. Yeah, so I got an under-21 side and they're like looking, and like Wayne Bennett's rocked up to training.
Hectic.
And you wouldn't believe the amount of drop ball that starts happening, man. Like the kids just get so nervous. And Wayne hates spiral passes, but I used to teach my team spiral passes. So
he hates spiral passes?
He hates it. He goes, I hate that flickety-flick stuff. Like, I don't know, but we used to do these spiral drills. But if I looked and I saw him coming, I'd be like, boys, 6 o'clock passing, 6 o'clock. No spirals. No spirals for the rest of the session. He'd come down, watch me, and he just saw me progressing. And then this year he gave me an opportunity to do the Queensland Cup. So I'm doing men now, and any guys that miss out on his side, I coach. But it is hard because I'm 36, and then a couple of my players are 33 that I played with. Danamus Louis, I played with him at the Broncos. So
how do you navigate that dynamic?
It's just starting. I think over time that'll phase out, having to deal with that.
Yeah, but, of course.
I can't be like, boys, don't get on the piss and all that. Man, I knew you.
Yeah. I'm also 33. I'm a grown man. You know what I mean?
Going to get on the piss.
I remember. I think I recall. It might have even been you on radio, but someone speaking of Wayne and his approach to coaching, and he was speaking about how important he thinks it is to do what you're doing. Go back, have your own team.
Massive.
Work through adversity, understand what you do in certain situations. How do you win? How do you arrest momentum if you're on a slide? Like all those sort of things that in his opinion, he doesn't think that a lot of these new coaches are getting. They're just assistant coaches sitting under someone else and they don't know how to do it themselves. Is that sort of the information? Was that his approach to you?
Absolutely. No, first thing he's like, you got to figure out if you love it or not. Because he said when he finished playing and he was in the police academy, he was coaching, I think he was coaching 3 teams at once.
Jesus.
Yeah, and so he just loved it.
That's ridiculous.
And he wasn't getting paid, he just loved it. So he's saying if there's no love, you can't go far. So first thing is you got to love it, and then second thing, you got to learn how to run your own environment. And that is the issue that all these coaches are having, because when you transition out of footy, you stay in the NRL system, and you help out. You might do the back three, or you might do ruck defence, and then you just work your way through, never having to drop players, never having to deal with players' personal stuff that's going off the field, never having to give the halftime speech when you're down 36-6, never having to all these types of things that you just don't get. And then if you're in that system and you do your time and then you get into the NRL, well, when you're making mistakes, you're making them on a big stage and there's a lot of pressure. And so he's saying you've got to learn that first before you get into the NRL system. So most players that come to Wayne and talk about coaching, the first thing he says is go get your own team.
Do you find yourself, how often do you call him for advice and how often does he go, you got to figure it out yourself? Is there a sort of like...
Yeah, it's probably, he's always there. So he used to just check the scores like online, and then if I had a win, he wouldn't really bother me. And then if I had a loss, he'd ring in and say, oh, what happened? And but never forget, this year I had a really bad loss, my first big loss. It was like 60-4. It was something ridiculous. It was one of those days where just everything goes wrong. And I didn't want to ring him, and he didn't want to. I don't think he wanted to ring me. He wanted to see me in person. And I saw him in the gym, and he sort of waited till a few people had left the gym, and he come up to me and he said, well, before you look and blame anyone else, have a look at yourself first. And
Shit.
And I was like, oh.
Was that worse than you could have expected?
And then he was like, what could you have done better? Selections, how you prep them this week. Before you start pointing the finger, have a look at what you could have done and then work from there. Because in coaching, you become nasty sometimes, when players aren't playing well and they're not getting you the result. If you start thinking like that, you can start acting quite strange, and that's where the pressure builds. So I think putting it back on me, it was a good reflection. Yeah. So it's like good lessons, stuff like that. He ring me and say, oh, what did you think about this? And what's your plan going forward? And, all these type of things, I think, brilliant for a young coach.
Is you finding that addictive? Like the more you
Absolutely
know, the more you
addictive.
know you don't know, but then you start obsessing over it all?
Yeah, you become obsessive. Yeah. And I think all coaches would agree, whether you're coaching under 14s or up to NRL, it's hard to get balance in your mind because you're always thinking about it. Like, how can we train better? Or what's this week looking like? Selections. And I just think you're right. It's the unknown. You're just chasing it. And you become, I'm quite addicted to wins and losses. Like I enjoy all of it.
Really?
I love it. I love it. So when you get
even when you lose, you're addicted
when
to
I
that
lose,
feeling
I'm
of
addicted to like, all right,
How
what are we going to do?
Yeah, how do we
figure
get out
out
of here? Yeah.
what went wrong there? I need to find out what went wrong. And when I find out what went wrong, see if I can fix it. And then if I fix it, then I get another kick. It's it's like a video game.
Seriously, that's what I was thinking about.
But you can never clock it though.
FIFA during the World Cup.
Yeah, but you can never clock it.
You can never clock it.
Eddie, as always, it's important to remind the punter and dribbler that we're sponsored by the best betting agency in town.
Yep.
That's Ned's.
That is. That's also not mine. Like, a lot of people hit me up and they go, dude, is this your betting company?
And then you have to remind them, no.
It's not.
No.
It's not mine.
No.
Although I can see how you're confused.
Yeah.
Because my name's Ned, I'm elite, and they're an elite betting company. So I can see how you got confused.
You can see it, yeah. You can see how there's some confusion there, punters and dribblers. But what there is no confusion about is that Ned's is top quality and it's the place that we punt. So if you can have a punt, by all means, make sure you're doing it with the best in the biz, and that's Ned's. Now, we also...
They're almost, Tom, like the Egyptian cotton of betting companies.
Okay, like the thread count out the
Thread
arse.
count out the arse. Like 300 thread count or whatever.
Like so silky.
Like 7,000
smooth,
thread count.
Slips straight off.
Yeah, it slips off you.
Yep.
That sort of thread count.
They also are the home of the private punters group, About Even, which is also the name of the #1 betting show in the country.
Correct.
Now you can go and join that betting group on the Ned's app in the groups tab. Private secret passcode is dribbler. Get in there, share your bets, have a yarn, shoot the shit. We'll see you in there, Neds. Chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, call the number on screen or visit the website. And what about the player development side of things? Because I imagine that would also be addictive, seeing like players get better and like you know, reach their potential, and like, you know, maybe you're putting a bit of faith in someone to do something or to like step up, and then seeing them do that. Yeah, it's one of those ones though. It's never it just never goes up and up. It just goes up and it drops. You know, and you got to build them back up, and it drops. And it's just, and sometimes it becomes frustrating. But what I do know as a player myself is I was that. Yeah, I did those. I went up and I went down and went up. So when you're a coach, you just got to have some patience with some guys. But there's a point there where you got to be ruthless too. And you just got to make a call for the team. In that first year that he gave you, like, how long into it did it take for you to be like, oh, I like this? Or like, was there a period there at the start where you're like, oh, fuck? Not one period where I thought, nah, this ain't for me. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, it was like you were saying. It's like once you got in, you just get in deeper and deeper and become pretty obsessive about it. So the first team I took was that Colts side, and I took him and I was running them up hills in the off season, and we were wrestling, and it was just full blown. And so not seeing any results. It's preseason, but I'm just wondering how's this going to translate into the rounds. So, but you never know. You never know if there's more you can do. So sometimes because there's a point where you can't go past. Yes, you can train guys hard, but there's a point there where it gets crazy. Yeah. So you just got to go up and touch it and then back off of it. Otherwise, it gets detrimental. Yeah, it does. Well, yeah, and I mean, I imagine have you had those experiences as a player where you like a coach has flogged you? Isn't Madge a notorious psychopath? Yeah. Well, yeah, he was. There's some, I think there's a park just around the corner here, Sydney Park. There was a lot of tough days there. That was sort of the first 2 weeks back from preseason you'd run. I think you'd run like a 3.5K time trial, and then you'd have 5-minute rest and do it again. You got to be joking. Yeah, you'd do it again. And I'll never forget, Isaac Luke went on a Tri-Nations tour one time, and he come back and that was his first session. And I remember doing the 3.5K loop and not really seeing him. He was at the back somewhere, he'd put on weight, and 5-minute rest, and doing the second one, running and just seeing him laying in the garden. he had fainted in the garden, and there was trainers putting water on him. But it was, I'd done pre-seasons at West Tigers. I had done 4 years at the Broncos, and I had never seen anything like what we did at South Sydney. Like some of the stuff, and you can ask all the players that were there who have been at other places. It was crazy. And so how crazy? Is it too much? Do you think it was too much in terms of what you're doing now? Tessie Pop, sorry. Too much. Yeah, it was probably I had enough. Yep. 2 years was enough for me. And I ran off to rugby, and Sam ran off too. So maybe it was a bit much, but we got success. So I'll always be thankful for him for pushing me to a place that I didn't know I could go. Yeah. Yeah. And now when you look back and your career's over and you've got a premiership, and I've got friends that don't, it was all worth it. At the time, I thought he was crazy. I thought he was nuts. I just, the army camps, the long runs, the wrestling sessions, 3 sessions a day, getting in there at 7 a.m., leaving at 5:30 p.m. It was just... What's the dynamic like with player and coach in a situation like that where you're like, this motherfucker is trying to kill me? Yeah. Are you still friends with him? Or is it a bit more like authoritarian? Nah, he was very much authoritarian. He was scary. He was intense, and he could just fly off the handle like at any time. So everyone was shit scared of him, to be honest. Really? I think the only time I got angry at him in my second, 2014, 2013 we went on the most ludicrous army camp I've ever been on in my life. It was run by the SAS guys. Terrific. So it was like that show, but it was full on. And then the second year we went again,
and it was bad again. And I remember sort of packing up my kit and like fronting him and telling him that I'm fucking leaving. Like I've had enough of this. Like if this is what footy's about, I'm out.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I don't need it, blah, blah. And he sort of talked me off the cliff a little bit. But that was one time where I got to the point where I said, mate, you've gone bananas. Like, this is nuts.
Yeah, no wonder Sammy Burgess won the show because he'd done it before.
Well, yeah.
You know what I mean? He's like, mate, this is a piece of
Fucking
piss.
easy compared to the Magic camp.
Except when he was stuck in that tunnel and he was getting, like, I would have been dead.
Is that the one you had to go underwater?
Yeah, he
and
went
then
under. He was in the tunnel and he couldn't get out because of his shoulder. And he was in there for like an hour. Like I'd be dead
Right,
from
I'd hate that.
being
I know.
claustrophobic.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I'd die. I would
You'd
die.
have a
of
heart
panic.
attack, I'd say.
Are all the boys talking like sort of almost bitching in the background, being like, "This is fucked," or are you trying to be as professional as you can and just?
Well, there's some guys that are trying to like, impress the coaches with their leadership skills and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm probably pretty good. Like if you're going on army camp for 3 days, I'm pretty good for like a day and maybe a night, and then I become very negative. Especially when. You're being woken up at like you go to bed at 1 a.m. and you get woken up at 3 a.m. by screaming soldiers telling you, get the fuck up. We're going, get your kid on. And I never forget this one where, I don't know, it's a hard one to describe to get in people's head, but we were in this big like factory, maybe where shed, like where they have planes and stuff. It was huge. And we sat in there and we sat in this room and it was dark and we weren't really allowed to talk to anyone. So you had to sit there in silence. And we're just sitting there and the guy comes out with 2 wheelbarrows of rice and he pours it out, 1 wheelbarrow of white rice and 1 wheelbarrow of brown rice. And he mixes it all up with his foot and he goes, separate it, and walks off. So you got a whole top 30 squad like down on their stomach, and we're just like I'm just separating like brown rice and white rice, and like for hours, right? And then boom, over the loudspeaker comes that song, Highway to the Danger Zone. And I was like, oh, that's all right. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're working hard here, separating. They give us a bit of music, fair enough. So start separating. Anyway, the song goes on repeat, and it just keeps going for like 4 hours.
Oh, my God, dude.
So we're separating this rice. Danger Zone's going loud over the speaker. No one's allowed to speak to each other. And I'm just like, what the fuck's going on? And we're looking around. I'm thinking, when's this going to end? And one of the boys was like, we all had gum, so one of the guys was chewing his gum. And anyway, this doors busts open and like 4 or 5 of these army guys come running in and grab one of the guys. And he's like looking and he's just grab him by the scruff and pick him up and take him. So like we're all like looking around, you're like not allowed to talk. So we're like, what's going on? So he goes and he's gone for about 40 minutes. Next minute he comes in like they're dragging him in and he's covered in sweat and he can hardly walk. And I'm like looking, so everyone like swallows their gum all at the same time and look, and then they grab another guy and take him. And they were just taking guys 4 at a time and bringing them back. Like the guys could hardly walk and they were just so fatigued. And I'm thinking, what are they doing to them out there? Next thing they grab me, so they took me and they throw you in this room and you're in this dark room and there's 4 doors.
What the fuck?
Yeah. There's 4 doors. And then you can hear people like smashing on the doors and kicking the doors. So you're just standing in there like waiting for them to come in. And they're just trying to scare you. They're getting you really anxious. And then they end up grabbing you and they take you down and they got you in a lane. There's all these lanes and they got you in a lane and there's a rowing machine there. They say, get on the rowing machine. And they just say, row. And you just row and they go harder, faster, harder, faster. And they keep going, row, row, row. Then they get you on the chin-ups, doing chin-ups, push-ups. And they just smashing you till like you can hardly like move your arms. And then they throw you on the mat and they make you fight a fresh army guy. So your arms are gone, can't do anything. This guy like throws you on the mat and he's like choking you out and like got you in the headlock and you got no energy to do anything. Yeah. And so, yeah, that was pretty much it. I got choked out like 3 times. and then I got grabbed and taken back into the main shed, and I come walking in like that and drop down, and then they take other people.
And you go back to separating rice.
And you go back to separating rice. Yeah. And that was the night that kind of went from like 9 p.m. through to maybe 1 a.m., something like that. And then they took us back to our beds, and they let us sleep for about 45 minutes, and then kicked open the door and said, "Get up, we're walking." So,
oh my god,
like that's some of the stuff.
That's the gnarliest fucking thing I've ever heard. Like, and we've heard a couple of those.
No, but that was great.
That's kind of like so fucked.
But like,
yeah. But I never forget the anger of being like choked out by this military guy. I'm sure they felt sorry for us too, but you just couldn't do anything. Yeah. You were just so fatigued. You hadn't slept well. You hadn't eaten. And
are you rattled after that a little bit? Like when you're back in there separating rice, you're like, what the fuck did I just go through?
Well, you're just wondering. I think you're wondering what's next, because if we're at this point, and you just got to imagine that song's still going, so it's loud. Like you can't really think. We're not allowed to talk to each other. You're thinking, what are the next few days?
Where's Madge in all this? What's he doing?
He was, I actually caught his eye, because when I'm literally getting choked, I kind of looked up, and there was almost like a little deck up the top.
Like a viewing deck?
And he was a viewing deck.
Oh, my God,
and he was sitting on the viewing deck just watching guys get
watching and
punished.
drinking.
Yeah. And he's trying to learn something about you. So,
sure.
Are you going to fight? Are you going to let this guy just bash you down there? What are you going to do? So...
hectic.
Are they common now, the army camps in footy clubs, or are they sort of full
I
out of vogue?
think people are veering away from them. I think there was a time and a place for them, but I mean, every team's done them, and only one team wins the comp every year.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a good point.
Usually the teams that have great academy systems, who have the best players, who train well on a weekly basis, I think that's a little bit more important than, a 3-day SAS camp at the start of the year. So maybe people are starting to realise, there's good parts about them, but there's some annoying parts.
Is there anything like when you think about how extreme Madge is, where a coach like him is only really like going to be able to be successful, like people are only be able to deal with that motherfucker for like a couple of seasons, and it's like come in, ruin everyone's lives, hopefully win a comp, and then fuck off.
Yeah, well, you got to be able to go with him, right? You got to be able to stay with that intensity, and he had his success at South. Obviously, didn't work out at Tigers, but remember he had a lot of success when he was at Melbourne as an assistant. He cleaned up over in the Super League with the Wigan Warriors when he was over there. Yeah, did well at South. So his theory would be it's a proven formula. It might wear people out, and it might give me an expiry date as a coach, but I'd rather that.
For sure.
And get something out of it rather than just like ticking along, being everyone's friend and never get anywhere. I'd struggle. I got asked this preseason whether I wanted to take my team on an army camp, and it would be pretty hypocritical of me to put my team through those things when I struggled so bad with them myself. So,
dude, that's as wild as it gets.
Yeah, that's only a couple of hours of it though. So it's
I'm sure. Was there anyone who was like, is someone like Sam Burgess in that? Like, does anyone sort of really rise in that, or is it so hectic that there's no one can really show too, like you can only show so much of yourself in something?
No, there's always like 2 or 3 guys in your team that are just absolute animals at it. They're not always the best footy players.
Yeah, okay.
But they'd probably make good soldiers. Yeah, like they can just go, sleep deprived. Like someone like Michael Crocker.
Oh yeah.
Like he eat that stuff up. Like he was an absolute machine, and he could just go, but. And you find out, and the sad part about it is like there's guys that break, and they're usually the guys that would probably break on a footy field for you,
right?
Guys
so that does still reveal itself.
It does reveal itself. There's guys in there that really, really struggle. So, I mean, you can use it as an exercise to figure out a lot about guys, but I'd hope I never go on another one.
Would there be a correlation that you would ever pick up on where guys that would break easy might not find themselves in the starting side or used as frequently by the coach?
Yeah.
Like, would there, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if a coach saw some worrying signs on that someone wasn't buying in or someone wasn't giving it their all, yeah, absolutely it would affect. Yeah.
That'd be tough, wouldn't it? After a 3-day army camp and you're the bitch that broke and you're like, wow, I went through all that, now I'm not going to play.
But like Sam didn't come on. Sam didn't come on one of them. I think he was away on tour and Isaac Luke was away on tour. So they had these sandbags in the shape of humans, and they had ones that weighed as much as Sam and Isaac and whoever wasn't there, and we carried them on stretchers for 4 days.
Oh my God.
And they was like, that's Sam, like they put a face thing on, that's Isaac, and you literally carried them. So he wasn't there, but we carried him the whole camp.
Jesus.
So,
Good Lord.
Yeah, he should have just come.
Yeah,
I think he was in Bali or something like that.
Far out. So how's it been going this year in the Q Cup? How's that been, that step up?
Oh yeah, it's been just different coaching men, and coaching men that have families, men that have full-time jobs. So you can only train them 3 nights a week. So trying to cram a lot of stuff into that, and then the fact that NRL send back full-time players for a captain's run. So you're almost trying to always just gel them together as best you can for the season, and then throughout the season you lose players, so your results are up and down. Yeah. So sometimes it's a hard to get an idea of where your coaching's at, but all you can do is deal with what you got and what they send back, but take the lessons about, pre-game, halftime. A massive one for coaches is interchange. Yeah, like that's tricky. Like that's really tricky part, and that's an art in itself.
And is that like there's not like one right or wrong way?
Not one. Like for instance, like if you got a guy who you know is going to give you aggressive impact at the start of the game, you might start him, but he hasn't got an engine, right? So you need to make sure on the bench that you got someone that can fill out those minutes that he can't do. And then you're trying to think, all right, I want to get my player back on. I could move him here. It's like, moving chess pieces, and then, all of a sudden, bang, center goes down. But you decided to go with 4 forwards on the bench. Yeah. Oh my God, you're gone. Like, you're literally watching it happen, thinking, I can't believe this has happened. I go 4 forwards on the bench and I just got a winger or something that went down. So you just got to manufacture things and see how you can change it on the run. That's the exciting part.
Yeah. Well, you can see how difficult it is because, like, even Freddie Fittler, coach in New South Wales, has seemed to struggle at certain points with youth and change. Like, it's not, doesn't seem to be any secret sauce necessarily. Exactly. Are you expected to start players that come back from the NRL sides? Like, is that an expectation?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Does that make it difficult for players that might have been killing it all season, that are doing really well for the side, and like a really big part of it, that then go, nah, you're out. Sorry, mate.
Absolutely. And that's the part of coaching that Wayne wants me to learn, is about, you got to drop this guy, but do it in a nice way. Let him know the system. So right from the get-go, I'm very honest with the system. I'm like, guys, this is how it is. When they come back, they play. If they're not playing well, maybe after 3 weeks, I'll have a chat to the boss, and then I can make some changes. But it is what it is. Yep. So you got a guy who's a plumber, who dreams of being an NRL player. He would give his left nut to be a full-time training guy, and then you got a guy who is full-time, who's playing like a bastard. It's quite hard, there. And then, as I said, it's got to take a couple of weeks before I can probably make the change.
Do you find the players you're coaching at that level who are so close but so far, like it's more emotional than maybe like all the players that have made it, or is there?
Absolutely, yeah. It's all up here. Yeah, you got guys that are, there's guys that are like physical specimens that are playing rugby league, but their mind just won't let them go to the next place.
Right.
Yeah, and usually the best way to describe it is like they just can't get angry enough. Like in a simple term, they're just not aggressive. Yeah, and
right. Okay.
For instance, I coached that as a player. That was what I loved to do. I loved to be aggressive. That was more than anything. So I can't understand it sometimes, but it's like a mental block. Some of them are just like too nice. And that's what holds them back. And then you've got these guys who have all the aggression, all the mental, but their body's crap.
Just can't.
They lucked out in the genetic lottery.
Right.
You know what I mean? They got no power.
Right.
No size, can't bust through the tackle, can't handle the physical contact. And it's a shame, right?
Yeah.
Because I always say, like, if I could put your brain in his body, you'd probably be in jail. But
is the Q Cup made up of players that just want to play the NRL, or is there also a mixture of players that are like, I'm happy that I've reached this level, I just love my rugby league, and it's like a good competitive comp?
I would say 90% probably still think that they're a chance.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's awesome thing to be around. Guys that like love the game and watch their nutrition and go to bed early and work and train because they still think there's that opportunity that they might get a go. There's probably like 10% of guys, especially playing in those rural towns, like let's say Mackay and Cairns and stuff. When they're up there, they probably understand it's never going to happen, but they just love playing top level footy. But most, the dream's still alive in a lot of young players, which is what it's all about, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
You see these guys that take a little bit of time to come through. Kobe Hetherington, who's playing really well for the Broncos, he's taken a little bit of time to come through, but when they do, it's just awesome to see.
Is that just like Christmas?
Oh, yeah.
Even for you to see how pumped they would get, these guys that are like a little bit older than, is what's considered normal, I suppose, finally getting a crack after all that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And they finally get that chance, like, their parents have been along for the ride. They've seen the ups and downs, and a lot of players have been let go from a couple environments, and then they kick on. Someone like Mark Nichols, he's a late bloomer, and I think everyone loves him for that. That's why they call him the GOAT, because he's not really the GOAT, but they call him the GOAT. Yeah. But just to see guys like that go on and maybe make a little bit of money on the back end, but most of those guys don't really make money. Like they don't. If you're a late bloomer, you might end up getting 50 NRL games, and it's all nice, and you get a couple of jerseys you can hang in the living room, but there's no money to be made, really.
Unless you're Cody Walker. And still unbelievable how that happened. Yeah. I've never really, and you go around in junior ranks and stuff, and you'd be like, that player, he's a good young half, but he's just not there yet. And they say, he could get better a bit later on. Like, look at Cody Walker. And I feel like saying, man, I've only seen one Cody Walker in like 30 years do that. Who just hung around in Queensland Cup till 26 and then comes on and is like the best ball player in the game, plays Origin, all these things. He's an anomaly.
That doesn't happen often.
Well, it's happened once.
Most kids they know. Everyone knows if you're in the game, you know all the kids coming through, and you know which ones are going to be the superstars or have the potential to. Yeah, not many slip through the cracks.
What's that next crop looking like in terms of, are they just bigger, stronger, more athletic? Are things just ramping up? Like if you look at the type of athlete in the game now versus 10 years ago even, it's just getting more and more hectic. Is that still happening?
Absolutely. Well, when I come back from rugby and I went to the Broncos and I walked in the gym, I'd never seen young athletes like that in my life. David Fafita, Katoni Staggs, Flegler, Payne Haas, Paddy Carrigan, and I'm just looking at these guys and they're just big in the gym. And we run the Bronco tests. The Bronco tests come in when I was first playing, and if you could get under 5 minutes, you were ridiculously fit. It was like a pass mark. Those guys are running like 440s, like 435, 4. I think Payne ran in the 430s, something ridiculous. So you're like, God, that's not normal. But then you understand what's happening is these kids are training from the age of 12 now. Yeah. So they get identified at 12, but you can't sign them till they turn 15. But they can still join your academy. So from 12 to 15, they start lifting. They start doing speed work, agility work, and Bronco tests. They start building their base. At 15, boom, now all the contracts coming.
Yeah.
You're a 15-year-old, in the mail comes 4 contracts from Titans, Broncos, Cowboys. You make your choice, and then you're in another academy from 15 through to 18. By the time you're 18, 6 years of S&C, you're a monster. Like, I didn't touch the weight. I didn't touch a weight till I was 18, 19 maybe.
Right.
My first preseason was when I was 20.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, that was my first NRL preseason. Now you got kids that are coming in and doing preseasons at like 17.
Wow.
It's part of their contract. So
When were you? Because and anytime we get a stat wrong, it's Wikipedia. We had Lottie Takiri on.
Lottie.
Yeah, we had Lottie on last week, and I started off by going, "So you moved to Australia at 15? What was from Fiji?" He's like, "I came here when I was 4."
yeah,
Or 2 or something. He's like, no, that's not right.
Sorry, Lottie. That's
he's the
fucking
best
Wikipedia.
Lottie.
He's a legend.
Oh,
yeah,
mate,
he's a
a
good
legend.
man.
He's a smart man because when he come to South, he heard about Madge. So he didn't sign his contract till February when the preseason was
told
over.
us that. He told us that.
Missed
He
half
was
the
like,
fucking-
I'm not doing that.
He's like, "Oh, imagine I'll think about it. I'll think about it."
Yeah, he was coming. Then, Walsh is in. This is when he had dreads. So Walsh is in the shed. So, hey, boys, ready for round 1?
He's good.
But so what I was going to say there was, again, according to Wikipedia, but you were in like the junior Kiwis when you were, so it's like 15 or 16.
Yeah.
Then whatever the 20s version
Yeah.
is. So I assume though to some degree you're getting identified quite young though, right? That
Yeah.
you're a talent. What was that process like for you? Like, I guess, emerging as a footballer to becoming someone who's actually getting picked in these sides.
Yeah, I was probably because I grew up playing. I used to play rugby and rugby league, so I just played both. I was always into it, and then I gave the game away probably around the age of 13.
Well, it's an early age to retire.
Yeah, just retired and sort of having some growing pains in my knees, and I thought I was going to be a skateboarder, but anyway, we'll just leave it. I thought I
we've
was,
kick-flipped a few boards at that time. Don't worry about
all my
Later
mates,
the couple too.
all my mates were into skateboarding and stuff, so that's what I thought I was going to do, and ended up getting back into rugby league and sort of just as most kids start on the wing and work their way towards the pack. But yeah, once I got into it, I started making some rep slides. I made the New Zealand under-16s and then the 18s, the junior Kiwis. But I was picked up by the Warriors first, so I was put in their academy, and I think they grabbed like 40 kids and they signed up all the best talent in New Zealand, put them in an academy. And it was maybe like 4 or 5 months down the track, they realised that was pretty expensive. So we might just flick them all. So they flicked pretty much all of them except for maybe 6 guys.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So I got the tap on the shoulder like, yeah, you're out. Like, you know what I mean? So
wow.
that was my introduction to professional sports.
Did that light a fire under you, or are you like,
Absolutely, yeah. So my contract was like, Warriors signed me after the under-16s New Zealand side. I think they signed me on a $3,000 contract. And once they decided to get rid of everyone, they not only tapped me on the shoulder to say, mate, you got to shoot. I was halfway through rehab for a surgery, so I was pretty vulnerable in terms of getting my body back. But they also said, yeah, look, and we can't pay you. We don't actually have the money to pay you. And I was like,
$3,000?
yeah, and so I lived quite far away. I lived an hour 20 away. So I was driving back and forth, and my mum was giving me gas money. We didn't have a lot of money. So in my mind, I was thinking, you know, don't worry, I'll tick up the spill, and then I get that $3,000 I can pay mum.
Yep.
And when they cut me, they said they couldn't pay, but we can pay you in Puma. They were sponsored by Puma, vouchers. And I was like,
Jesus.
are you serious? And then they told me that's all they could do. So they gave me like $2,500 worth of Puma vouchers. So I went into the Puma store and bought a whole lot of like hoodies and that, and then tried to sell them to get the gas money.
Oh my God.
And in the
what
end-
an insane amount of pressure for a young
Yeah.
kid to have to be under. Like,
Yeah, mid rehab too. So
Wow.
in the end, I sold like one jumper. So I was in debt. And I had a whole lot of fucking Puma gear, which I didn't want to wear. And I was injured and out of contract. So that's how I ended up leaving New Zealand and going to Keebra Park High School.
which is like, that's like the mecca of like rugby league schools, right?
So I was going there, and Benji had just left, and it was an opportunity to get me fit. And I pretty much turned up there as just overweight, and I was struggling. And the school helped get me in shape, and that's how I ended up at the West Tigers. But I think that lit the fire in me. And once I left New Zealand, I was like, I'm never, ever, ever coming back. I'll never, ever, ever play for New Zealand. I was like dirty. I was so dirty, and it just like drove me my whole career. I think like fast forward when I'm playing first grade and I got an invitation to do the Kiwis train-on squad, and I was like, no, not doing it. I was like, I'm not playing. If I can't play for Australia or Origin, I'm not playing for anyone. Yeah, so I was just like dirty on that situation. It's funny when you think back, it's like, oh, maybe I took that a bit far by doing that, but you can't help how you feel at the time.
Absolutely.
And how you were treated. And at that time, like $3,000 was a lot of money to us, you know, and to be sort of
and
treated.
you're banking on it, right? Like I
was banking on it, yeah.
To just pull it as well. It's so fucking.
I know. So and like they're better now. The Warriors, their system's better and that. But like that was my introduction to professional sports and how like ruthless it is and how cutthroat it is.
Did they ever come back and try sign you at any point during your career? Like show any interest?
No, never. They knew because I'd done an article in that where I said that, so they knew like I would never go there. So at the end of my career, there was maybe an option, but I said no way. But I just think you learn all these lessons, and then going down to West Tigers, you go down there on a very very small contract and had to work in an Irish bar to try and get my way through, So things you do. The kids these days probably don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Which is maybe better for them.
What happened to the jumpers?
They're probably still in New Zealand. My dad's probably wearing one right now.
Mate, now you got the profile. You can probably sell them.
I might be able to sell them now.
You probably. The audience will listen to this and you might get a couple offers.
Yeah.
Well, better late than never.
Yeah.
Put them
as they say.
I need that fuel money.
How old were you when you came across from New Zealand?
17.
17,
yeah.
So how do you get to the school? Like, how does that all get lined up?
So I had a manager at the time, and he knew them, and they were looking for some forwards. So he sorted out a deal where I came over. First thing I did, I flew from Auckland to Sydney for a 2-day West Tigers camp. And as I said, like I was overweight. I hadn't played footy. And there was some scouts down there, and I think they rang the school and said, I'd send this kid home. Like, he's huge. Like, he's overweight. They said, we'll wait till he gets here and look at him. So I did the camp, and then I went up, and then, I lived in the same house that Benji lived in. Little house there run by some house parents, and just chipped away at it and started playing some good footy until I could get signed.
Is this, like... It seems like a lot, right? In terms of you're obviously really chasing your career, but was this sort of like from a family perspective, like you had to make it? Did you feel that sort of pressure, or was it just that this is what you wanted to do and it's like, fuck it, I'm just going to have a crack?
Yeah, my thing was like, fuck it, I'm just going to go have a crack. I'll go over. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, I'll be back in 6 months. Like, who cares? So I just left at the time. Like, I lived in New Zealand. I was 17. I had a girlfriend and all that stuff. But I was just like, nah, I'm going. My dad's Samoan and my mum's English. So I grew up in like quite a European household with some Samoan aspects to it. But I never had that pressure. I was never like, you're gonna go and make it. It was really up to me. To do it, but I do know like there's a lot of Polynesian kids out there that just have the weight of the world on them from a very young age. I'm talking like 12, 13, 14. Really? You see it, right? You see where the family's just banking on this kid to make it, and it ain't NBA. Like, it's not NFL where these guys get it. The money's good, but it's not crazy good.
Yeah, your contract isn't going to set the family up.
You can't set the family up with it.
No.
So a lot of the guys now, no one gets set up. They all just sort of eat into it, and then by the time he's 35 and he's out the back door, he's got nothing. So it's a tough one. There's a cultural aspect to that. Yeah, but
interesting. No, well, that's
interesting. How was West Tigers?
Yeah, it was.
Do you remember your debut?
I do remember my debut. It was good because, it was a funny story, I left Keebra Park High School, so I was finishing up, and everyone was going to schoolies, and I wanted to go to schoolies, but apparently Tim Machines' quote on it was, do you want to go to schoolies or do you want to play first grade? And I was like, oh, I want to play first grade. So I better go to the airport and just get on a plane and get to Sydney. So I fly. This is my introduction to the West Tigers. I fly to Sydney and I land and I go get my bags and I'm sitting there and I'm waiting and I'm like looking around. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. I'm like looking around, I'm like panicking. And this is before like mobile phones. I didn't just have credit to like ring. I had one of these things you used to get from a news agency. It was like a calling card. And so I took the calling card and went to a payphone. And I rang back to New Zealand to my parents' house to tell them to ring the manager, to tell them to ring Kebra, to ring the West Tigers, to tell them that they forgot me at the airport. So I was like sitting there with my bags waiting to be picked up by the West Tigers, and they never came. Eventually, 5 hours later, the guy comes and gets me and drops me off at this house in Burwood. So that was my introduction to them.
That's a good start.
Yeah, it was a great start.
8 hours late.
Yeah, but when I got there, I get there end of 2005, so that's pre-season for 2006.
They
just
off
won
the
the
back of the
comp.
fucking comp.
Yeah, so when I signed with them, this is early on in 2005. They were all right team, and then they just went on that run, and then I get down there and they've just won the comp, and they've just turned into superstars.
Yes.
Like absolute superstars. So, yeah, for me, just going down there, Scotty Prince is there. He was injured most of 2006. Brett Hodgson, Benji's driving around in this little sports car. He's just living the dream.
King of the world.
Yeah, and so for me, it was a great environment to come in and see like sort of what success looked like.
Yeah.
But you have to say from that point on, it didn't go great, did it? That was kind of, I saw like,
You saw the peak
I'm seeing the peak,
Yeah.
and then watching the decline because older players were leaving. They were bringing in new recruits that maybe didn't work out for them. So
Were you there 4 years?
3 years.
3 years.
So I played the first year I was playing Jersey Flag, and they called it Premier League for Balmain Tigers. So I loved playing for Balmain at Leichhardt, and they had the Balmain Leeds Club was still going then, and it was rocking. And then played 2 years for West Tigers, and then there was that opportunity to go back to Queensland. Yeah, I had a lot of friends up there through school, and they came down and met me, and they were like, if you come up, you're going to play on the right edge. It'll be you, Darren Lockyer, Justin Hodges, and Israel Flowers signing.
Fuck.
And I was like,
Sounds pretty good.
yeah, I
That sounds pretty
I
nice.
should take that.
I can get used to that.
Sam Thaiday, Corey Parker, all these guys are there.
Weapon team.
Yeah, I just thought to myself, it was a great opportunity, and I needed to go sort of be around that. So
And it was so what years is that? Is that like 08?
yeah, that's 2009 and 10. I signed with the Broncos. Yeah, and they didn't leave me at the airport, so it was pretty
It's a good start. It's a good fucking start.
Much better start.
Yeah. And then, so after a couple of years of the Broncos, I don't remember how they went in those years. I know Manly, you
Yeah.
were 2009,
No,
Manly
no.
won 2008.
Nine we
Finals? Couple of finals.
9 we go prelim in Melbourne versus that Melbourne team that got stripped,
Oh, yep.
and they
Dogs.
smoke us.
Yeah.
They smoke us down there. Melbourne, 2010, not great. 2011, our best year that I was there. That's the one where I think every player's got that year where they think this is our year,
Yeah.
and it ends up not being. But 2011, with Darren Lockyer announces his retirement, and that's going to be his last year. So everything's like geared towards like for Lockyer, like we're doing this for Lockyer. And we had a real good thing going, and we beat the Dragons up at Suncorp.
That is drop, like he does the
Yeah.
derby, yeah.
But remember the kick goes up, and Jared Beale goes up to take the kick and knees him in the face.
Yeah, and
and
that's right.
fractures his
Yes.
his face. So then we go downfield and he kicks the drop goal. We win it. But yeah, we sort of know then that he's gone. And throughout the week he doesn't train, and we're hoping that he can play. He actually goes down in a helicopter to Sydney because he couldn't fly because of his face. So
shit.
Oh, really?
yeah, so they organised for a helicopter, fly nice and low, flies him from Brisbane to Sydney.
Wow.
So he comes
That
to the
would've been
hotel.
painfully long.
Yeah,
How long would that be on a fucking trial?
That's a long time. You'd have to stop.
Mate, I'd be stressing.
Yeah, and then but we get down to Sydney, and he comes to the hotel, and I think it's the night before he sort of stands up and announces to the boys that he can't play, and That's it.
Yeah. And who'd you play?
We played Manly.
I thought so.
And
Vaguely
you know,
remember
and that's the hard part about it, right? Is with our full team, I'm not saying we beat Manly.
Certainly
I'm
chance,
saying
though.
we have a red hot go,
Yeah.
and that's one of those ones where the prelims really the final.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly
whoever
right.
wins that goes through.
Yeah.
No disrespect to the Warriors, but
We
yeah,
had George Rose on here, and we were asking, we were like, when you saw the Warriors beat
Yeah.
the Storm, and he goes, holy fuck, I'm going to win a grand final.
well, we had played Warriors week 1 of the finals,
Yeah.
and beat them like 40-10. Like,
Yeah.
So if we get through and we get Warriors, I know what's going to happen. But that was a red hot Manly side, and we could have only had a crack at them with Darren Lockyer.
So you had a couple of years at the Broncos, then you're down to South. Is there a concern from a player like you're moving around too much, or is it just sort of like, is it just better opportunities?
Yeah, better opportunity. I think players just know or understand what's the best for them.
Yeah.
Like they always say, there's no interest like self-interest. So, you got to figure out where you can go. And at the time, when my early years at Broncos, I was starting, and then Anthony Griffin came in to start coaching in 2011, and he loved some of those young players that he brought through the Colts, through the NYC, and fair enough, he's got great relationships. So, fighting for the back row spots were Sam Thaiday, Alex Glenn, myself, and Matt Gillette. And at that time, like me and Matt Gillette were coming off the bench getting like 30 minutes a game.
Right.
And I sort of started to get the feeling like, all right, I'm becoming an interchange player here. And if I ever want to play Origin, I've got to be a starter.
Yep.
I've got to get to a team where I can start. And that's where the conversations came in about leaving. And I remember meeting Michael Maguire at his house in Coogee, and he said, if you come here, you play 80 minutes every week, and I'll help you get to Origin. So
Don't
for
ask
me,
about
that's like,
pre-season
yeah,
camp.
yeah.
I don't think
That's
I
before I knew what his training was like. So I was there. I was done. I was in. So I think everyone's got to do that eventually.
For sure. And I imagine was part of your like experience as a young kid getting fucked over, like did that sort of put in your mind like that you got to be out for yourself a little bit? Like does that rub off on you or like leave an impression in that sense?
Mate, it changed my whole like career and trajectory of maybe where I was going to go. When I was young, when I first started, I probably thought I was going to play for the Warriors, and I probably would have tried to play like 300 games for them.
Yep.
That was my thinking. Once I got burned, I was burned for life. And from then on, I just did what was best for me. And I've never, ever changed that. And all my mates joke around, guys I've played with, like, you're a mercenary, you go around that.
Yeah.
I am, because, it just didn't work out for me being loyal or whatever. So I just go where the opportunity is.
Yeah.
And so me going to South was that. I wanted opportunity, I wanted to start, I'll go. So I never really worried about it. And then I probably took it overboard by changing codes and changing teams like 4 times in Union, but whatever. Once you've worn like 3 jerseys, you might as well wear 8 or something like that. So
What's the difference?
yeah,
right?
what's the difference? So
How was winning the comp? Unbelievable.
oh yeah, crazy. Just never probably thought, and you guys will understand. So in 2013, I thought we had our best side.
Yep.
2013, I thought that was our year. The way we had trained, the way we have played. And I just looked at our squad and I thought, this is it. And then we run into Manly in the prelim.
I was at that game.
This is Lottie was saying the same thing.
And
about, like,
I never. That's probably been my darkest day in football. I was heartbroken because it was such a weird day. So just woke up on the morning and I don't know it just didn't feel right. But anyway, we get to this game and we get out to a good lead. We're winning at halftime. I think,
Yep.
And then it just all goes downhill and the momentum swings and we can't stop it. And I still have nightmares about like Glenn Stewart, like how a guy can be so skillful. And he was an amazing player. We end up losing that game. I think you find out after the game, I think it was Madge's mum passed away the morning of the game.
hectic.
It was
Yeah, I
something
remember
like, there was just something not right about that day. And once that game was over, I mean, everyone was so devastated. It was like there wasn't like talk of like Mad Monday. Everyone just gapped it. There was no end of season reviews, or it was just gone. And everyone just took off. Yeah, and we got together and had a drink. But I mean, I was in a haze for like weeks off that. I was just like, I was walking around Coogee with like no shoes on, crying a bed. I was just like gone. So in the end, to snap out of it, I ended up booking myself a flight and went over to the States for a little while, do some training. But yeah, so by the time 14 comes around, I'm thinking maybe this ain't going to happen for me.
Did you, because Lottie came in 14, right? But he was saying that game was like used a lot or referenced a lot, that game against Manly in 2014.
Yeah. Well, we never wanted that. I think Madge thought that we let up on our intensity and that we could never, ever do that again. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, I agree with it. He was right. So we did use that game. But, I'm going into 14 and I'm thinking, nah, that ain't going to happen for me. I don't think this is going to happen. It's probably time to get out of here. Had enough of sort of rugby league at that time. I remember going into Madge's office and he's like, what do you want to do? Like, we want to offer you a new deal. And I said, nah, I'm going to go. He said, where are you going to go? I said, I'm going to go to rugby. He's like, why? And I said, I've just had enough, mate. I just can't do this anymore. I've got to get out of here. My mind was a bit gone on just the whole bubble of rugby league and the pressure. Yep. So I was putting so much pressure on myself to win a comp. I just felt like it was just going the other way. Yeah. Like, I was still devastated about 13. Like, it still affected me right through 14. So by the time 14 was there, I was like, all right, I'm going to sign with Rugby Union. I'll finish off the season with South, and then I'm out of here. And so I wasn't like thinking we were going to win it, which is one of those things. It's like when you want something so bad, sometimes it doesn't come. Whereas if you just chill out for a bit, but I almost didn't get to play because I think it was like late rounds. Isaac Luke does like a spare tackle on Sonny Bill, and I'm sort of in it, and I end up getting I get a chicken wing. Sorry, I get a chicken wing on Sam Thaiday, and I get a couple of weeks, which could rub me out of the finals. And I miss week 1 of the finals. And so, the team had to play Manly at the football stadium. And that's actually, we talked about it this week because that game should have been at Brookvale.
Yep.
Yes.
That
game, that was, that was poor,
we talked about it this week as well. It's fucking...
So, the theory is we go to Brookvale, we don't win. No. And we don't win a competition. Yep. So they move it for the crowd to football stadium. Yeah, and that's our stadium.
And then lied about how many people were there.
It was a fucking 40.
And which is the same thing that's happening this week, talking about crowds and finals.
Yeah.
Sure.
But that should have been at Brookvale. We win that.
So we won 2014 as well.
Well, exactly.
Yeah. And so I missed that game through suspension, and luckily, I was praying on the judiciary that I didn't miss the whole series and that the boys got through. So they get through, and then Madge gives me a run in the prelim off the bench, and then, it's just 2 games, bang, out the door.
Back in, ready to rip.
Yeah.
Fucking good stuff, eh?
Yeah.
That's mad.
But,
Did you regret signing with rugby after you'd won it? Were you like, fuck yeah? Like, was there a part of that?
I was out of there. Yeah, I needed to get out of there. It was a nice ending. Like, you couldn't really script it better to leave South like that. But, me and Sam both sort of knew that was the end.
Did he leave that?
Yeah, we were leaving. We were living together. We were living together at his apartment in town, and we were both going through contract negotiations, but we wouldn't discuss it. Like, we didn't know what each other was doing.
Right.
And I remember talking to my agent because I was saying, I want to go to rugby. I'll go in Europe. And then there was this, they have like those little things in the paper, like little rumours, which player, which South Sydney player, whispers, which South Sydney player looking at Rugby Union and that. And I rang my agent straight away. I was like, mate, who are you told? He's like, I didn't tell anyone. I was like, mate, like, read this. Like, who else could this be? Like, not knowing that it was Sam. I had no idea.
The guy you're fucking sitting across from at breakfast.
Yeah. I had no idea he was thinking of leaving. But, once he signed and I signed, we sort of knew, like, this is the end. Mm-hmm. So, sort of the back end of the year, we were more probably preparing for Mad Monday than to win a competition, to be honest.
Was it as fulfilling as you'd thought? Like you'd wanted it for so bad for so long?
The best.
Yeah.
Hectic.
The best.
That's
like
great.
it's one of those things. It's hard to describe. It's like completed. Like, your footy career is complete, and you can always sit there and just be. I think since that day that happened, like I always feel quite confident in my career. Not in like what I just as to be a part of something special, to be able to like speak about it. If there was other guys that have won championships, I think everyone can speak about how important it is to you.
Yeah.
And I think I would have been, pretty distraught to never get it. But like I said, I'd made my peace with it. I thought it was over. Like when I played that game versus the Roosters, we were losing. I thought it's over. It's never going to happen. So maybe that's the best way to think about things.
So who'd you sign with in England or Europe?
I signed with Leinster, and I went to Dublin. So that was the first. I ended up getting in contact with Michael Checker, and he was coaching the Waratahs at the time. And I was going to go. I talked to him about like what's the best route for rugby. Where should I go to learn? He said, "Look, I coach at a club called Leinster in Dublin." He said they're a top club. They'll be able to teach how to play the game, all this stuff, which I knew how to play the game from a kid, but the ruck had become just crazy, which it still is. No one knows what's happening.
No one knows what the fuck's
There's just guys jumping on each other. So
Don't bring it up to rugby people.
Yeah,
yeah. Very offended.
So he said, go over there. So I ended up going to Leinster, played 2 seasons with them, and then I ended up going over to England to a club called Worcester. That's no longer.
Do you find it hard to pronounce all these? Because I read Worcester and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What? Leinster, Leinster, Leicester,
Yeah.
like,
Worcester Warriors, which they've recently gone into liquidation. They're not around anymore. But
RIP.
rest in peace. But Eddie Jones had made contact, and he had the gig at England. So that was an opportunity to go and play sort of test rugby.
Did you have that in your mind the whole time?
Nah.
Before you went?
No. When I went over to Leinster, I just wanted to go over and just play rugby. That's all I want to do and get out of Australia. So 1 minute, I'm playing a grand final, 85,000 at ANZ Stadium, winning a comp, have a couple of days on the piss, go over to Dublin, I do like 2 training sessions of rugby, still don't know what I'm doing, and then I go with the academy side, the Leinster A side, and we fly over to Wales, and we play in this place called Carmarthen. It's just this like, it's like just a little rural ground, and it's got like a cycling track around it. And there was like 40 people there to watch us play them, and that was it. Like I'd gone from that to that. I was back on my training wheels, learning how to play rugby.
Were the boys around you like, what are you doing, mate?
Probably. I think that some of them knew some of them knew that I was coming. So throughout the final series, they took an interest in South Sydney and they watched the finals. But yeah, once I got there, I'm like with these guys that had just come out of school. Yeah. And like as I said, I'm playing in this pretty average sort of standard.
What did you feel like in that moment? Were you like, what am I doing? Or were you kind of enjoying
absolutely.
it?
I think when I was getting ready and warming up and like the sheds were pretty tiny and stuff, I was thinking, what have I done? Like I really asked for this, didn't I? And then, just to top it off, like I'm loitering around a ruck, not really knowing what I'm doing, and just get absolutely cleaned out, cleaned out on the ground, and I'm having a scuffle with this guy, and I've got him in a headlock, and I'm just thinking, this is not for me. But I just knew I just had to hang in there, and I had enough athleticism that it would get me through. But the skill part and the rules around the ruck were quite challenging actually to get used to.
What was the plan though at that point? Was there a club you had in mind? Did you want to win like a Heineken Cup or a rugby championship? Like was there a plan really or not?
I just wanted to play rugby, and I wanted to travel too. Yeah. I wanted to go around and see some stuff because, since I had come over, I'd just been so zeroed in on being an NRL player, and then it was about playing Origin, then it was about winning a comp, and then I just wanted to go play rugby and travel.
Did you not like the celebrity aspect of rugby league? Like, did you find that? Was it nice to be away from?
Yeah, it was nice to just go over there and go out with the boys. And I'm not saying like I get ask for photos or anything, but it was getting to the point with rugby league where, as a team, you'd go and play somewhere and you weren't allowed out of the hotel. No one was allowed in the hotel. And if you did go for drinks, you had to get a roped off area, and the club had to supply security. And it was always like this. But when you go over to Europe and you're playing rugby, you finish the game and the team just walk down and you go in the pub, and there's not as many rules. I don't think they're so freaked out because they don't have that media pressure. Yeah. And so that was a good thing to go there. But I didn't have plans to play Test rugby. In actual fact, I played my first season and my coach got sacked. And then I was thinking, all right, I might just go home then and get back into rugby league. Like maybe this is the end of the road for rugby after 8 months. So...
So you were just thinking, like, you weren't enjoying it, obviously, if you were considering.
No, I was enjoying it, but I was kind of thinking, should I just go back? Like, it's kind of what I know. Maybe I just needed a break, and now I've had a break. So the Cowboys rung in 2015 about going up there to play, and I spoke to Greenie and stuff like that. They go on to win the comp anyway, but yeah, that was an option, was to come back. But then I sort of thought, no, I've come this far, and I'm still learning. I'm just going to hang in there. And then it was that next season was my best season, and that's sort of what got the attention of England. And they knew that I had the passport, my mum being British, so that's how all that sort of started.
Had you had contact with Eddie before then, or was it after that season Eddie's like, let's have a fun?
Yeah, after that season it was kind of like, let's have a chat. Because I was playing in like the Heineken Cup and playing against top teams and guys who are internationals, and obviously I was playing quite well, so there was no doubt physically I could do it. So it was more about, okay, do you want to come over? If you want to play for England, then you have to sign with an English club. So that's why I signed with Worcester and went over there. Yeah.
Was there any interest from the Wallabies or not?
Yeah, there was. Yeah. I went and met Checker in, when was the World Cup?
2015?
Yeah. They were getting ready for the final versus the All Blacks at Twickenham. I went and met him in London at the hotel. We sat down and had a chat. And he sort of talked to me about what the options could be. Most likely I'd have to come back, play for the Waratahs. But he was very interested. But yeah, for me, it was just like I'd kind of already made the decision that I was going to go to England and I was going to have a crack that way. And I just thought it'd be quite cool too, my mum being English, that, to go and play for them. And
did she like that?
Yeah, she loved it. Yeah, it was good because I went on tour. Like, I didn't even know the national anthem and all that, so the boys taught me that just before one of the games. It was God Save the Queen back then. Now it's God Save the King. But yeah, just sort of being able to represent where she's from.
Sure.
It was important to me, and she came over to Twickenham a couple of times to watch me play. So yeah,
that's mad.
Yeah, real good opportunity.
Cool.
Did you what was Twickenham like? Packed,
packed. It's packed, and it's like
it is
the best setup. In both codes, in terms of, so the English Rugby Union with RFU, they own Twickenham like outright.
Okay,
so
that's nice.
Long time ago, like, because I went and I had to do like a tour there with a sponsorship group. A long time ago, they bought it. It was a piece of farmland. They bought it, they put a stand there, they built, and they've just sort of built it up over time. And so when they have a game there, they take everything. They take the gate, the hospitality thing. Someone told me it's ridiculous, like £13 million profit per game. So, and they only play their test matches there. So they're just, cleaning up. And it's 80,000 sold out every single game, but it's not loud. It's not Australia loud. It's not like screaming. It's kind of like lots of
gentry, respectable.
It's like lots of clapping and songs. They sing. But it's a lot more reserved.
It's not like State of Origin.
No, it's not like State of Origin. But it's a good lesson, isn't it, for the game, is to like own stadiums.
Yeah, I
like
know.
own your stadium. You imagine if the NRL owned a stadium.
Well, don't the AFL own Marvel?
They do. They do.
And that was like what they were leveraging during COVID.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's when PBL was like, oh, we actually don't own anything.
Yeah. And then they went and bought Gambaras.
Yeah, that was isn't that the most rugby league thing of all time?
Yeah.
No stadiums, we're just going to buy a fucking
It's
Gambar.
a really good seafood restaurant on Caxton. What do you reckon?
It's fucking right next to the stadium. We
Abdo,
have
run
to
the
walk
numbers.
Yeah.
Can we buy it? Yes, we can. Let's get it.
Let's get it. Yeah. I don't know if is it coincidence that PBL loves seafood? Is that coincidence? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it must have been quite, I guess, satisfying to get over there and when you start actually dominating or like start, holding your own against these other sides or these other players, these big name players. Who was because you're an inside centre?
Yeah, inside, yeah.
Was Tuolangi, was he the man that was sort of
Yeah, he was the man.
he was the man, right?
Yeah, he's still the man. Oh, he's had a
He a
lot
bit
of
older now,
injuries.
would he?
Yeah. So, yeah, this is a guy who, burst on the scene at like 18 years old in Test rugby and was just literally a wrecking ball.
Yeah.
And he's got a great story. The fact that, he was an overstayer. Like his brothers come over to play rugby for Leicester.
So he's got his other brother, monster, isn't he?
Yeah, all his brothers. There's like
Okay.
5 of them.
Is
They're
there
all
really?
monsters.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and they brought him over. He was only a young boy from Samoa, and the parents said, "Yeah, take him, look after him." So he took him over to England, but he didn't have a visa or anything. So he's just going through school, and he's an overstayer, like illegal.
Yeah.
And then he gets in the Leicester Academy, and they build him up full of weights, and he's strong, and he just dominates rugby. But then he slowly had loads and loads of injuries, and that's sort of where I came in to fill a little bit of that role. We end up getting on the field, I think, once together. Where I was at 12 and he was at 13. But yeah, he's probably someone when you talk about like who can go the other way, like rugby to league, like he can.
Yeah.
Yeah, Manu Tuolangi could definitely just pick up a ball and play
Straight away.
NRL tomorrow. He'd be like a Talakai, Katoni Stags type 1-on-1. You wouldn't be able to stop him.
Yeah.
So
Did you win anything with England? Would you like a
won
Six Nations or something?
Six Nations, yeah. Won a Six Nations. That's pretty much it.
No World Cups though, were they?
No World Cups, no.
They haven't won since 2003, mate.
Well, I don't mean.
Yeah.
I just mean even played in one while you were over there.
Yeah.
You didn't play in 2019?
No, I didn't play in 2019. No. I got released from the squad prior to World Cup. So yeah.
Did you play any games with Sam Burgess for England?
No. So it was.
He kind of walked straight in, didn't he?
So that was what I was saying.
Was he gone when you?
Yeah, he was gone. So
Right.
that's kind of how it worked out. Like I said, 1 minute we're living together at South, and I go to Ireland to sort of do my time, and he goes to England, and he has all the pressure, and he plays in that World Cup in 2015, and then he leaves, and then I join the squad after him. So we never got to play together, but yeah, he wanted to. I don't think culturally like it was the right place for him, Rugby Union.
Yeah.
He's a bit of a straight shooter, and I think he just wanted to get back to South. And I remember he rang me one time, and he was on FaceTime, and he had his premiership ring on, and he was waving it, and he said, "I'm going to go get some more of these." But unfortunately, he didn't get any. But he wanted to go give it a crack. You know?
But you say straight shooter because that's sort of the thing that's kind of come up in the media now. Do you think in Rugby Union what he's like? I've got standards, and if you like, would he be sort of calling people out in that sense? In a rugby setting, you don't think that works? Like, what do you mean there?
Rugby's different like that. So, rugby league's very straight to the point. There's no talking around, and that is just like, mate, you're an idiot, mate, you're a dickhead. Why don't you do like? It's kind of like that. Rugby's a little bit more like bitchy, there's cliques of guys, and everyone sort of smile and act like they're all good with each other, but then they gather in little groups and slag people off.
Really?
And that's just
is this English rugby more?
that's just
specifically, or is that
rugby. That's just rugby. It's in the DNA of the game. They get in these small groups like that. So I think he struggled with that because I think that when you're in a good rugby league team, everything's just out in the open.
Mm-hmm.
It's just all out in the open, and we don't muck around with stuff like that. So everyone's got pretty thick skin in rugby league, like you have to. But yeah, that's I think parts that I didn't like about rugby. Yeah.
Right. Did you ever have any, like, did you ever bring any of that rugby league energy where you're like calling something, like have to sort of, you know, bring something to the forefront?
No, I never probably felt that it was my place to do that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I sort of just sat back and I observed, and a lot of the things that I observed has probably helped me now with my coaching. I understand what's going on in teams. Like I might act like I don't, but I know that, like, okay, these three, they're unhappy. One's, you know, these guys are bitching about these guys, and you kind of got to let it happen, but then try and pull it all back together.
Yeah.
So there's some good lessons in it.
What's Eddie Jones like to see? And is he aware of that shit? Does he have to be dancing with that sort of bullshit?
Oh, mate, he's aware of everything.
Right.
He's intense. Yeah, he is intense. I went from one intense guy to the other.
Yeah.
But the difference with Eddie was, like, when you play rugby union and you're going on these tours, and these things go for like 8 weeks, 9 weeks, and you're just living with people. And so some of the guys I played with in England, I'm so close with some of them because, like, we literally live together, like in a room together. And so it's being with Eddie for 3 years was just full on. Like, it was intense. And I watched him just destroy people.
Really?
I watched him absolutely destroy, like, players, staff. Like, it was like this. This is the level. You get to this level or you get out. Like that was him. There was no, like, in between. I've just seen him put the pressure on a lot of people.
With the knowledge you have of him then, and the way you're describing him there, you can only imagine what he would be fucking saying to some of the guys in the Wallabies camp, right? Or do you think that he knows, like, that you can't always just be, like, if he doesn't have a team that's good enough necessarily, that he can't actually just
he's smart.
them?
Yeah, he's smart enough to know what he's got at the time, and he's got some young guys, so he'd be building them up, but he'd also be on their ass. Like, he's on them. It's a regime.
Yeah.
He's like he's Kim Jong-un, and they're living in North Korea. You know, like, he is the law. So look, and I think right now, I reckon he'd be a pretty good coach to come through underneath. If you were a young player, some of those young Wallabies he's taken over, I think they're going to have pretty good careers because he'll push them hard. Yeah.
Do you smile when you see him telling journos to give themselves uppercuts?
Yeah.
You just love that shit.
I crack up, because I just sort of, I've seen it, like, you know, I've seen it once he's, you know, left those press conferences and he walks back into a room, you know, for like team dinner or something, and it's like nothing happened. For him, it's all theatre.
Yeah.
It's all part of the game.
Right.
And sometimes you understand if you're in the meetings. So say you're in a meeting and you're playing the All Blacks at Twickenham, and you're preparing for the game. He'll start building the mentality about, you know, they don't think we can do anything. Oh, they're unbeatable, are they? Well, what about this and what about that? So he's finding cracks in their game that we can exploit. And then you watch him go to the press conference and you listen to what he says. It's not far off what he's just told us.
Yeah.
So he's painting the picture for the media too.
Okay.
And he also understands that whatever he just goes and says in the press conferences, we're going to watch on our phones in about 40 minutes.
Yep.
So he's talking to us too. So that's all part of his psyche.
It's interesting,
Yeah.
isn't it?
You know what he's doing. Sometimes I can read a bit of it.
Yeah.
Do you think that sort of thing comes naturally? Do you as a coach, are you getting lessons from how Eddie speaks to the media, how Wayne speaks to the media, how these like really like elite media guys go about their work? Because, you know, if you keep going the way you're going, and let's say you get a first grade side, eventually you're going to have to deal with that too.
Yeah.
Especially in Australia, the media is fucking intense.
Yeah, look, I watch and observe all that stuff. Like I probably watch most coaches' press conferences before I actually watch the highlights.
Really?
Yeah. When I'm very interested in that. Like,
Yeah.
I love to see how they answer the questions and what they say and what's the messaging. So I'm like at this level, like low down here, but watching like Wayne and watching Eddie is just like watching masters that understand. They understand the whole news cycle. They understand how it's going to be interpreted out there. I think Wayne's the best. I think Wayne's the best I've seen, because I think when it's bad, what he does is he doesn't say too much, because I think his theory is that if he's emotional, then it's not the right time to talk.
Yeah.
So the less he says in those press conferences, the better, because you don't want to say something that you'd regret. And he actually does the same in the sheds too. So if there's a poor performance, so I remember when the Dolphins had their first trial game and they got smashed by Titans, and that was just before week 1 of and so everyone's a bit like, oh my god,
And everyone's death riding. Everyone thinks the Dolphins are going to be shit.
They're paying like $2 to win the spoon.
And I go in the sheds and I'm thinking, like, what's this gonna be? Like, what is he gonna say? I'm just intrigued. So I'm sitting there like, oh my god, and I'm silent. And then he just comes in. He says, he sits there, and the whole room's silent, waiting for him to move, and he's not moving. And everyone's just like looking around. And then he just gets up and he says, "Well, boys, you've left me lost for words. That's us," and walks out. And everyone's just like, it's like silent, and like no one knows whether to move or not, or like who's gonna get up like and go for a shower. And he's walked out the door, and it was like the suspense was just, there's no speech you could have given that could have got that reaction.
Yeah.
And it was outstanding. The next week they beat the Roosters.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Wild.
And he made some changes, and he made them swift. He didn't muck around. He just went bang, bang, bang. You're in, you're out, you're out. Done. And it was just like, wow, just watching sort of that from the inside. And some of his speeches and coaching those first 4 rounds for the Dolphins were something I've never seen.
Really?
Like unbelievable. Like the speeches and should have made a movie on it.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Does he talk to you? Do you talk about those sorts of elements of coaching, like the media management and like, because every time we've spoken to anyone who's had Wayne as a coach, like Jai Arrow was it Liam Knight told us a story the other day where it was like,
It was lame, I think.
they got fucking towed up, and then after the game he didn't say anything, and then they're all like the next like Monday at training, it's like everyone just gather in this hall, and then they're all just sitting like, what the fuck are we doing in here? And then Wayne just comes in from like a door up there, and he's got his shirt off, and he's just dancing in there like, fuck the fucking Lost Boys. Let's just You're like, does he let you in on his thoughts behind his approaches and shit?
And that's the thing. I think he's coached so many players over all these years, all these eras, right? And they'd know him, but they don't know the backstory of why. So Jai would be thinking, why has he done that? But one of the best parts about working for him and working under him is sitting in these coaches' meetings and listening to him talk about players. And one thing he talks about is like there's a massive like care factor for the person. So like I've sat in there with him when someone's had a bad game, and, they're going through their clips that they're going to show, poor defense, poor this, poor that. And say a guy's got like a missed tackle for a try and a missed tackle for a missed tackle for a try. I know most coaches would be like, show him. Yeah, show him. Yeah, almost embarrassed. He's got to see it in front of the boys. And Wayne will sort of think and be like, yeah, take that off. Take that off. Yeah, take that off. I'll speak to him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like he's got that genuine care for like, I don't need to embarrass this guy.
Yeah.
Like he knows. They know.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, they know.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pull him aside and I'll have a chat to him about those things. But I'm not going to belittle him in front of the group. And that's one thing I've taken from him is like just learning who needs what or he might be like, no, put those on. No, put that on. You know, Jared Wallace, he needs to see that. Because he can handle it. Like Jared Wallace can handle all that. He eats that up. He's got thick skin, so he's like, show him. Yeah, show a couple more then. You know? I want to get my point across. Yeah. So it's very, very calculated.
And so, do you think that's because I think you were in your comments around the Bulldogs thing, you were like, it's one thing to punish someone, it's another thing to belittle someone. Yeah. Is that sort of where you think that may have gone wrong in that? Yeah,
I think so. I think that's where, not knowing all the details, but just the details that I heard, I think it went the wrong way. And someone was really distressed by it, obviously. They've taken time off, and I think knowing Wayne, I know he would never do that to someone.
Right.
I just know. It wouldn't be something that he would see benefit of, and I think there's he's very concerned or very wary of the players' trust in him, and that's why people say he's like a father figure. Like, he's never coached me, he's never been my coach, but players that are being coached by him talk about him as like the father figure. Yeah, that's right, because he almost looks after you like you are his son. So he's a good man with that stuff, So that's one of the best parts about being behind the scenes. You understand like why he does those things.
Right. Have you got a timeline mapped out in your mind for like what you want for coaching? Like when you want to start having a crack at sort of the big dog city?
Well, it's like I was saying about footy. Like sometimes you chase it too hard and you end up in a bad situation and it's not happening. So for me, I just love coaching. So I've done 21s. Last year I did schoolboys, so I did a second 15 in rugby, and I did Colts. This year I do Queensland Cup, and I do assist in the NRL. I'm like the third assistant. So I'm getting a taste of everything, and I'm just keen to work my way into assistant coach, still do a bit of media, and then wait for that opportunity, because as you guys know, like once you get in, the pressure is on. You're on the clock then. And you need results, so I don't see what the rush is. And I just see like people like Benji, like the way he's doing it. Like, you mean like he finished playing? I think he was doing a bit of academy stuff, and then it's like signs a 5-year deal, 2 years assistant, 3 years full time. I'm like, what? You know what I mean? Like that's crazy.
Crazy. And now it's looking like potentially 1 year assistant.
Well, it is. It is.
Well, then I heard the other day that maybe they'll try to bring someone in again. I don't know what's going on. So 1 year assistant, unbelievable.
Yeah, unbelievable. And like being a coach now, like I can truly say, like you don't know shit about anything for at least a couple of years. So you're going to be learning on the job, and that's sometimes that works, and I hope it works for him. But maybe I'm willing to just go the long route, and just be really comfortable in what I know before I get into that environment,
that high pressure situation. Did you know, like your time at the Tigers, was there like, did you see this level of fucking disorganisation?
Well, apart from them leaving me at the airport, I suppose. I suppose you could start off with a bit of there wasn't great communication back then. It was one thing I did notice is that the two setups.
Two factions.
Because as I said, I was coming through the Balmain one, and everyone was it's a very proud club, like Balmain Tigers, like great club to play for. But then you just had the West Magpies out there, and we'd sort of go out there every now and again to do like a captain's run and have a stake at the Lees club, but we kind of weren't invested out there. And I just always felt they were just two different people. It'd be like grabbing.
It's a weird. It's a weird one.
Would you imagine
like Campbelltown, Balmain?
They're just too different. Imagine grabbing your team Manly and let's just merge them with Parramatta tomorrow. It'd just be. And I understand why they had to do it, but it is a hard one, and it's hard to see it like going forward sometimes. And then you look at the table now, and you look at the ladder, and you see the other merger down there, the Dragons. And you hear the same things about these two boards, that they can't agree on anything. Where do they train? They train in Kogarah, train in Wollongong. it's a tough setup
Yeah.
for both of them, and there's a reason why they're down there. It's because they just can't make decisions and they can't get it right.
Yeah.
So I kind of did notice that. You know, when I left West Tigers and went to Brisbane, I was like, oh, this is a lot different.
Yep.
Yeah, this runs a lot
one club,
Yeah, a
united.
lot smoother. And at the time, the Tigers were training under the grandstand there at Concord Oval, and wasn't the greatest sort of facilities, and they only just recently got out of that. So, yeah, there's certain clubs there that you understand why they're at that place.
Yeah, at the top and the bottom.
Yeah.
Look, before we let you go, just wanted to check on the relationship status with you and Danny Weidler. Have we
Have we
broken
mended?
bread?
So funny. So funny. So he brought this up because he was doing a podcast recently and they talked about what's his biggest beefs, and he brought my name up, and I was thinking, well, it's not a big beef for me. Like I moved on past that stage, but
You smoked him though in that video.
yeah, I remember having a crack at him in that press conference. I never forget. He was standing on my left. I could see the grin out of his face. And
is
I was
this like him in shot? You know, Danny's always
yeah,
no,
he's yeah.
Mate, I
He's
watched it this morning. He's
yeah.
very close.
Yeah, he's always in shot. So he's there and he's grinning, and we have our little back and forth that day. And then that's 2014 or 13. He turns up 2014 on grand final week. He turns up at the open press conference. And I remember going downstairs and I saw the boys all sitting there, and I was like, boys, Danny Weidler's up there. I said, I'm not speaking to him. I said, you guys can if you want, but it's up to you. And then I think it was like Sam stood up and was like, if he's not speaking to him, none of us are speaking to him. So he's at the NRL Media Day on grand final week. He needs to get some interviews. And the boys coming saying, no, sorry, Danny. No, sorry, Danny. And he's like, oh, and I just remember seeing him. I think, all right, you've had yours, you know?
Yeah.
So I haven't seen him for a long time. I go over to rugby. What are we talking? How many years has this been since 2014? Where we're at?
Hey,
Nine
what,
10 years
nine?
now.
9 this year.
9 years. So I haven't seen him for a long time. I'm up in Brisbane this year, Magic Round. And I'm in town. I've got to go see, I've got an appointment in town. So I'm sitting in my car. Anyway, there's a van parked just in front of me. And I see this guy coming across the road with a cameraman and someone. And I can't really see who they are until they get right in front of my car. The cameraman comes around to the boot and he sort of like acts as if like I'm too close. And I'm like, oh, no worries, I'll move back. So I move back. He opens up, puts his camera in, and then I see Danny's there. And he's about 3 meters away from me, and he looks and he sees me through my windscreen, and he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and he sort of mumbles to his cameraman. He's like, "Get the camera back out of the car," type thing. So the guy gets out, gets in the car, jumps back out. Danny jumps in the car. He gets out the camera. Cameraman gets out, presses record, and just stands there. He just stands by Danny's car. Danny's in the car. I can see him. He's on the phone looking in his rearview mirror at me, and he's just on the phone the whole time. And I'm sitting there like, man, I'm here to see the optometrist. Like, I'm not here to bash you, mate. I'm here to get some new contact lenses. Like, and I can see him. He's like on the phone looking. And he's got a cameraman with like the red lights on record.
So he's running it in case
he's
you do
running
anything.
it, and he's just standing outside his door. And I'm thinking, mate, this is ludicrous.
Like you've tracked him down.
Like I've tracked him down on Magic Round, knew where he parked his van, and I'm waiting for him. Like, and, I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
So in the end, like he looks, he waits. The cameraman literally stands there for about 5 or 6 minutes, and then he must get the word like, all right, he's not going to do anything. Boom, comes back around, puts the camera back in the van a second time, gets in the car, and they hoon off. And I'm just sitting there like, he really thought he was going to get me there. He thought he was going to get like a UFC clip of me just coming out there, ground and pound on the sidewalk. I mean, that would have been all over TV. But so, yeah, that's where. And then 2 weeks later, he does the podcast and says that we got beef. And I'm, Danny, if there was beef, you would have seen it outside the optometrist. You would have seen it.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
Yeah, but I got to give it to him though. He's a real professional. He wasn't going to miss the shot, was he?
Yeah.
He knows good TV.
Hey.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's in the content game, right?
He's in the content game.
I'd let you bash
always-
me if it was on camera.
Get that camera rolling, mate. Get
Keep
that
it
fucking
rolling.
camera rolling.
No matter how much I say help, do not help me. Do not help me. Oh, well, that's good to know,
that's
mate.
good
That's good
shit.
to know. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks,
It's been
bro.
fucking
No worries.
great. Really
Cheers,
appreciate
guys.
it. Nice to
Legend,
meet
Got some
you.
comfy chairs here.
Yeah, no, they're very nice.
talk all day here.
Very
Yeah, you
soft. I know
could.
you
Yeah.
can.
I loved it. Thanks, brother.
Nah, awesome.
Cheers.
Thanks,
Beauty.
guys.
Could you two just not talk anymore?